In this video, we're going to look at a man who was pushed to his breaking point by a series of events and the hardships of his life, to the point where he would ultimately commit an unspeakable crime. We'll uncover the series of unfortunate events that led to his unravelling and the fateful day that changed the course of history. Join us as we examine the psychological and emotional turmoil that can drive a person to the edge and the devastating consequences that can follow. John Bellingham was born in 1769 in St Neots, Huntingdonshire. His mother came from a prosperous family in the area, while his father, also named John Bellingham, was an artist who had achieved modest success as a painter of miniature portraits. In the early 1770s, Bellingham's father began to show signs of mental illness. As a result, the family moved back to St Neots in 1775, when John Bellingham was about 4 years old, presumably to receive support from his mother's family. His early experiences would have exposed him to the challenges his family faced due to his father's mental health issues. This early life experience may have played a role in shaping his later actions and decisions. John Bellingham grew into a man who dreamed of wealth and adventure. He left his hometown of St Neots at the age of 14 and he became an apprentice to a jeweller in London. After this, he soon found his way to the sea and he joined the crew of the Harwell, a ship bound for China. He hoped to make his fortune in the exotic lands of the East. Unfortunately for John, his voyage would be cut short by a mutiny, and that mutiny left the ship wrecked and sunk off the coast of Africa. Bellingham survived this ordeal and he returned to England with nothing to his name but his wits and his ambitions. He worked as a clerk in a counting house, and then he started his own business as a merchant broker in Liverpool. He married Mary Neville, a respectable woman from a good family. He seemed to have settled into a comfortable life. Yet, he still yearned for more. In 1800, he saw an opportunity to expand his business in Russia, where he had some contacts and clients. He travelled to Arkhangelsk, a port city on the White Sea, and he became an export representative for several British firms. He was successful at first, but soon he ran into trouble with a rival merchant named Solomon van Brienen. Brienen accused Bellingham of writing an anonymous letter that exposed his fraud and an insurance claim. He also claimed that Bellingham owed him a large sum of money from a bankruptcy case. Bellingham denied both charges, but Van Brienen used his influence with the local authorities to have him arrested and then imprisoned. Bellingham spent 5 years in a Russian jail, suffering from cold, hunger and disease. He wrote countless letters to the British government asking for their intervention and assistance. He appealed to Spencer Perceval, who was then Chancellor of the Exchequer and would later become the Prime Minister. He received no reply and no help from anyone. He finally managed to secure his release in 1809 after paying a hefty fine and agreeing to drop his claims against Van Brienen. When he returned to London, he stayed at the house of his cousin, who described him as almost manic. He spent the first months of 1810 in furious petitions to the government to try and gain compensation for the losses he'd suffered in Russia. He claimed he was owed more than £100,000. He started making frequent trips to government offices demanding redress. Those close to him urged him to drop the matter, but he would not. He continued, seeking to present a petition to Parliament. After again being rejected, he made a promise to his wife to abandon the suit. He returned to his business and began to experience a significant downturn in profits as a result of an economic depression. He was furious and frustrated by what he felt was the injustice he had suffered. He blamed the government for abandoning him and ruining his life. He felt that he deserved compensation and recognition for his ordeal. He became obsessed with getting revenge on Perceval, whom he held responsible for his misfortune, after not having any response or reply from him. He bought a pistol and stalked him for several days. On the 11th of May 1812, he saw a chance. He followed Perceval into the lobby of the House of Commons. He shot him in the chest at point-blank range. Perceval fell to the floor gasping, "I am murdered." He died within minutes. Bellingham was immediately seized by bystanders. He showed no remorse or fear and calmly confessed his crime. He said he had a right to kill Perceval because he had been wronged by him, and he refused to listen to any complaints. He was taken to Newgate Prison where he awaited his trial. His trial took place on the 15th of May 1812 at the Old Bailey. He was defended by two lawyers who argued that he was insane and not responsible for his actions. They presented evidence of his mental instability, his delusions of persecution, and his irrational behaviour. They also called witnesses who testified to his good character and reputation before his imprisonment in Russia. The prosecution, led by the Attorney General, countered that Bellingham was sane and fully aware of what he was doing. They pointed out that he had planned and executed his murder with cold-blooded precision and malice. They also argued that his motive was not personal but political. Jury deliberated for only 15 minutes before returning a verdict of guilty. The judge sentenced him to death by hanging and ordered that his body be dissected afterwards. Bellingham received the sentence with composure and said he hoped his death would serve as a warning for future ministers. He was executed on the 18th of May 1812 outside Newgate Prison. A large crowd gathered to witness his fate, some cheering and some booing. The noose was placed around his neck, the trapdoor opened, and he dropped into eternity. The assassination of Prime Minister Spencer Perceval by Bellingham had significant repercussions. Perceval's assassination led to a period of political instability in Britain. It would ultimately be filled by Lord Liverpool, who became the new Prime Minister, leading to a Tory government that would remain in power for the next 15 years. The assassination highlighted the vulnerability of political leaders and ministers and led to increased security measures. It also shocked the British public. It's the first and only time a sitting Prime Minister has been killed. The event was widely covered in the newspapers and discussed in public forums. People were divided in their opinions of Bellingham. Some see him as a desperate man driven to extreme measures by injustice, while others viewed him as a cold-blooded murderer. The trial also raised questions about the relationship between mental health and criminal responsibility. His defence team argued that he was insane and not responsible for his actions. The jury ultimately found him guilty. The case contributed to ongoing debates about the insanity defence and the need for more nuanced understanding of mental health in criminal justice. The assassination of Spencer Perceval remains a significant event in British history, serving as a reminder of the potential consequences of political grievances and the importance of addressing mental health issues. Thank you for watching. If you want more stories like this, please subscribe.